Maybe, John. We'll see. All right, real quick. We kind of mentioned the tight ends, but there's none under contract. So, real quick, John, just for the sake of the segment, because this will be in a separate post on YouTube. What's the ideal tight end for this new version of the Eagles?
George Kittle, Tucker Kraft.
George Kittle. Is there anybody out there in the draft or anything? Maybe a Michael Mayer trade. Who knows? We'll find out. I don't want to spend too much time on tight ends. We got to see what happens there. John, quarterback. All right, that's the last one here on the offense.
Oh boy.
Has the quarterback? How are you expecting it to change around him? And how well does he fit on the perceived change of the offense?
That's the $1 million question. I think we'd all be rich if we could figure that out. On paper, does not look like a fit. I do not believe that, again, Sean Mannion will come in and ask him to do a bunch of stuff he's not comfortable with. Sean Mannion was a quarterback. That is not something you want to do to any quarterback. He knows that. I'm very confident that he knows that. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see how this evolves. He's not going to be asked to be Matthew Stafford. He's not going to be asked to be Brock Purdy. Can he be Jordan Love? Maybe.
The biggest challenge will be for Hurts in this. Just maybe getting the ball, like not being the playmaker. And on every play, I feel like he's been so accustomed to being that, although that's changed a little bit in recent years.
If you watch Green Bay play, it was a lot of deep throws, a lot of, it wasn't.
They got a lot of receivers involved, dude. They had like 8 receivers catch a ball in a given game.
Well, yeah, but a lot of long developing plays. I think if you look at them all, I think Green Bay would be the most likely scenario. What I don't expect is the ball coming out on time. The point guard, I don't expect that. I just don't until I see it. I don't know why anybody could say, well, he can do that. Where's the evidence? And why would you want him to do that? That's the second part. Like but to me, the biggest thing about Jalen Hurts is got to get the running portion back into the equation.
Yeah.
I don't care who's responsible at this point. Everybody pointing fingers. You got 4 pointing back at you, the old adage.
Yeah, it's like the meme. It's a Spider-Man meme, John, where they're all pointing at one another.
It's like, I don't give a shit at this point, but it better be back. Or you're going to have some of the same difficulties. Yeah, I mean, I guess, and I've said this before, and that was my biggest criticism of KP was, why can't you get a layup? Why can't you get more layups for the quarterback? And I think that's what you want from Sean Mannion. But, then I was thinking about it with Ben Simmons. Sometimes you get him a layup and he doesn't want to take it.
That's a crazy comp.
I mean, it's.
Oh man, I can't believe you just hit me with Ben Simmons, but I see what you're saying.
It's harsh, but it's pretty easy to get a layup in the NFL if you really want a layup, and I'm talking about bullshit bubble screen, whatever.
How many throwing attempts a game do you think Jalen's going to have next year?
I think they want to be right in the 25 range.
Like where they normally
in a perfect world. I don't want to, but that's not. People think these are all insults. These are not. I don't want Matthew Stafford throwing it 45 times. I don't know where people go.
That's not good football. That's just bad. That normally means you're losing the game.
Exactly. I don't want the smartest quarterback in the game throwing it 45 times. Now, if you have to, and they can get you over the top, well, that's awesome. More often than not, but yeah, anybody who's playing at that level, you don't necessarily want. And obviously, look, Jalen's not a high volume thrower. I talk about it all the time. There's good and bad. You ended the show yesterday, I think, or somebody asked me, who's a better quarterback, Jalen Hurts or Sam Darnold? Well, Sam Darnold,
Pumper super chat.
yeah. So was Pumper. Obviously, Pumper's going with he hates Hurts, and he knows I like Darnold, but I said Hurts because Hurts to me is still a better quarterback. However, I saw another Sam Darnold stat: first quarterback in NFL history, another one, to have a 1,500-yard receiver in 2 consecutive years with 2 different teams. He is a high volume thrower. But is Jalen Hurts a better quarterback? I think he's a better quarterback. Yes. I think Sam's very good, which means I think Jalen's very good. But I think you have to build around their strengths. And I think both teams have done that. And both teams have a Super Bowl because they've done that.
We will see. We will see what ends up happening. I read an article yesterday, John, in the Ringer about 9 storylines or something defining the 26 offseason. Eagles were in there on the precipice of a reset, I believe is the way they worded it. And they pointed out a stat to me, which I think is relevant to our conversation right now. Since Jalen Hurts became the starter of the Eagles, they ranked dead last in throws between the numbers with 903 total, and it's over 100 fewer than the next worst team. So they do not use the middle of the field. I think that's going to be something to keep an eye on here in this new offense. We will figure out though what that looks like and how it works, John. So we'll go from there. Let's go to some super chats here on the show today. I want to thank everybody for being here. All right, good show today so far. We have Chris Franklin coming up. Here's Vulnerable Vitality. 1.5 million is an accomplishment worthy of recognition. From Jody to the Old Late Morning Show to the people here today. See you all at 3 million. Thank you, Vitality. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. That's just audio downloads. That's not YouTube. YouTube's where our main base lives.
Nice.
Thanks, Vitality. Here's Anthony Hunt. Should the Eagles trade AJ for Jefferson? Oh, gosh.
No.
Why would the Vikings do that?
Yeah, could you imagine A.J. Brown with J.J. McCarthy? My God.
Oh, he would.
I mean, Justin had his problems, obviously, but he handled it a little bit better.
A.J. become a drunkard, and I wouldn't be able to blame him. And he's not a drinker. Here's James Carver. What up, Carver? Thanks for your supers. We got a string of multiple here from Carver. Per usual. Thanks, Carver. Like J-Mac with BLG, I don't see Nick just walking up and changing. He showed he's 100% political and wishy-washy. So after here, no one will know what he is. Yet they bank on him versus the best development coach and forget all else. That's a huge problem. I agree with that, Carter.
Yeah, I don't agree, James, because I mean, I don't think he's. I think he's savvy, politically savvy. I think he's smart. Like, I don't care what you like. If you follow politics, like James Carville's a guy who, I don't agree with much, but man, he's savvy. Would
it be fair to say, though, about the wishy-washy point? Maybe you're right, but like if hypothetically Nick wasn't here anymore and he was on the open job market, what would the perception be or the expectation of like his offense? In other words, if you hire Kyle Shanahan, you're getting his offense. You hire McVay. You hired Mannion. We have an expectation. LaFleur. Everybody's got an expectation for like what they bring, what their expertise is, where they thrive. What would Nick's be? Would they think he's bringing in the power scheme? Would they think he's going back to the Rivers scheme? Will they think he'll just be the chameleon? I don't know. I think that's.
Well, he would be. That's how he sold himself to Jeffrey Lurie, as being the chameleon. And he had 3 different offenses in 3 different years in Indianapolis because of circumstance. Andrew Luck retired late in the summer, kind of screwed them. And they had the shipped offenses to Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby was and they did a solid job, but obviously you want to improve on that. They went out and got Phillip Rivers, and it was completely different again. So you had 3 different offenses in 3 different years built around who they had, and that's how he sold the Eagles, that he's the guy. And to his credit, and I know a few people want to give him credit, you saw what he did in Indianapolis for the first 7 games of 2021. It didn't work, and he shipped it. And he built around a quarterback and had unbelievable success, the most success this organization has ever had. So the resume is pretty fucking good.
Yeah, I don't dispute that.
And but from the standpoint of that's how he would, my presumption is how he would sell himself for the next job, as a guy. And again, that's everybody in this league. I didn't make it up. It's a cliche in this league, and there's a million cliches, starting with number 1, which is control what you can control. When you're around the NFL, that's all you hear constantly. But really up there is, if you're hiring a scheme, you're doing it wrong. Everybody says it. Everybody knows it. Everybody understands it. And there's way too many people that do it every single year, because you don't know. And the Larry Karras story is the best story Nick has ever told, because he was a young coach at the time trying to be an offensive coordinator for the first time. And Larry Karras set up the trap for him. Said, all right, what kind of offense do you want to run? And just like we're talking here and all the fans talk, he's answering what he thinks Larry Karras wanted to hear, which is, I want to run motion. I want to be under center. And he stopped him right away and said, you don't even know who your players are. What are you talking about what you want to do?
It's fair. Here's Carver again. The basics of reach, blocking, and immediate desire to gain ground with the entire line sliding will almost certainly eliminate the RPO aspect, especially when the O-line patterns with a split and inside zone scheme to ensure there's no O-line downfield.
Well, look, the RPO has been less of a thing, really. It's funny because so many Eagles fans think of the NFL is always against the Eagles. They're trying to ban the tush push, that kind of stuff. The most impactful thing the NFL ever did to the Eagles is tighten up on illegal man downfield penalties when they were having tremendous success early with RPOs. And once they did that, again, in college, if you watch college football, they just let them go way downfield. They never call it, rarely call it. In the NFL, they're really stringent. You see illegal man downfield penalties all the time. So that kind of took them away from it. It's got nothing to do with anything other than that. That's why they don't use it as much, because the NFL calls it so tight, you can't cheat. And all of a sudden, if you start losing 5 yards and you're back behind the sticks, we saw all those problems. How many illegal man downfield penalties have the Eagles had? Because remember, RPO means run pass option. And the Eagles run RPRs, where Jalen Hurts has a run, a pass, and then a run option. And how many times have you seen hesitation? It's a timing play. Remember, from an offensive line's perspective, when you run an RPO and an RPR, to them, it's a run play. So they're trying to get off the line of scrimmage and block guys, whether it's combo blocks, pin and pull, whatever. They're not going to run pin and pull, but you get the point. They're trying to get off the line. So, Landon Dickerson might get a good block, and he's 3 yards down the field. And by the way, offense, oh, what a stupid idiot Landon Dickerson is. No, he was doing his job. The other guys weren't doing their job because it's a timing play. And that's why the Eagles don't run RPOs. It has nothing to do with anything else than how stringent the NFL calls it. And part of the reason they call it that is because the Eagles had so much success with it early, a lot of the other teams started complaining, look, they're 2-3 yards down the field. That's not fair. And